Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my ranking of the Fast and the Furious franchise. All 9 films, including the latest release, Hobbs and Shaw. This is a franchise that has been going for far too long, I think, in many people's eyes. And yet, it's somehow become sustainable. It's somehow become enjoyable. It's somehow become a must-see kind of event during the summer blockbuster season. It started as this kind of, I don't know, this thing that I guess only chavs and boy racers could relate to. They were going for a particular market, and then at some point along the way, it just got crazier and crazier and crazier, and we went from illegal street racing to basically science fiction superhero movie type stuff. That's crazy. If you can't deal with that, then this probably ain't the franchise for you. If, however, you can go into this series, any one of these films, fairly open mind and just go along for the ride, then I think this is a franchise you can get on board with and really enjoy, which I do. But let's get into my ranking. As I say, 9 films, starting with number 9, which is my least favourite. I will say, however, there isn't a film among these that I would completely dislike. I think number 9 does have some issues, but on the whole, no, I can watch any one of these, to be honest, and pass the time quite nicely. So at number 9, we've got Too Fast, Too Furious. This is the immediate sequel, obviously, to the original film. Vin Diesel didn't come back. At this point, I think it looked like the franchise was probably going to be dead in the water. Paul Walker, let's face it, he's not. He was never the best actor. He's a likable presence on screen. I think he becomes more likable as these films go on. He was kind of the main character in the first film, though Vin Diesel's character he ended up stealing the show. It kind of became his franchise, even though it was only one film. It was like, that's a Vin Diesel movie rather than a Paul Walker movie. But no, Paul Walker had to carry the film basically as the main character, as the returning character from the first film. And I think he acquits himself well enough. Like I say, he's a likeable enough presence. I think getting him together with actor, I can't remember the name, Tyrese Gibson, I think they have a good chemistry. Tyrese Gibson's character at this point wasn't a complete joke. He still had a serious side to him. He was a bit of a joker, but he could hold his own, so to speak. I think as the series has gone, he's become a little bit too much of a joke. I like the pairing of these two. I like the villain in this one. I like the introduction of Eva Mendes's character as well. It's a shame they've not done a bit more with her since. It's a solid entry, but it is the weakest of the bunch. Really dodgy CGI on some of the racing sequences, which in later films they kind of did away with a lot and did a bit more practical stuff, and it helps immensely when you've got CGI kind of back screens going on when lights are zipping past like they look like they're going at light speed. It just looks ridiculous. At number 8, we've got Tokyo Drift. This is the 3rd film in the franchise. I do get a lot of enjoyment from this, actually, and this was the first film that Justin Lin came on board. I think he's done 4 altogether. I believe he is coming back as well, which is good news, I think. He is the guy who essentially turned this ship around, turned this franchise around. And it kind of started here, really. Mostly with the fact that he was able to bring a lot more practical stuff in. They did a lot more work with the actual cars rather than relying on CGI. We didn't really get any of our main characters from the previous films, although Vin Diesel does pop up at the end, which was a nice kind of nod to what might come. But no, I like the main guy in it. I can't remember his name, but I knew him before this from a TV series called American Gothic, which he was very good in. And I like him here. He's got that southern hick kind of thing about him, but he's quite charming as well. And seeing the stuff at the beginning, I think the opening car racing sequence is really well handled. Again, a lot of that you can see is practical stuff. And it really, yeah, it sets the stall out much better, I think, than seeing these CGI infected races. But yeah, it's a solid story. It doesn't quite. I mean, I suppose it does tie into the others a bit more, actually, once you've got Han and his death and all that. But yeah, you can kind of take it on its own terms. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the Tokyo setting as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of Japan. I love Japan as a country. Have been there, and I love the setting here. So that coupled together with this character and the practical effects, and I think Justin Lin does a good job. It's just solid entertainment. At number 7, we've got Furious 7. I really loved this one the first time I saw it, just because of how preposterous it is. And I still do. I get an enormous amount of enjoyment from it. But over repeat viewings, I do find it increasingly more bloated. I do find more and more elements in it that maybe could have been streamlined or taken out altogether. I feel like this film's got about 15 endings. Yeah, just the whole God's Eye thing, introducing that, because by this point, obviously, they're kind of like a heist movie mixed with an action movie and all that. But yeah, for me, the biggest thing was that Jason Statham in this was such a good villain. You know, and they set him up in the previous film as being Shaw's brother. So he was like the big bad of the franchise up until this point. You know, the fact that they link him into Tokyo Drift as well kind of felt like, yeah, this is the big bad guy. And Statham was great in it. You know, he was really good. He made for an excellent one-on-one with both The Rock and with Vin Diesel. So seeing him, you know, go toe-to-toe with both these guys at various points, it's really entertaining. But once you start throwing God's Eye stuff into the mix, the terrorist guy played by Jimin Hyusu, I don't know how to pronounce his name. You've got Kurt Russell coming in as Mr. Nobody. You've got the whole plot line with what's-her-face losing a memory and getting it back, which is just a little bit too soap opera-esque for me. Add to that, you've got the death of Paul Walker, which meant they had to kind of stick this cheesy ending on that, for me, I'm sorry, still doesn't work. Yes, it is a little bit of a tearjerker for the audience, because you know we know we've lost Paul Walker, but within the context of the film, it doesn't make sense. From a narrative standpoint, it doesn't make sense. You've got all these characters saying goodbye to Bryan and having like these moments that are like really heartfelt and almost teary, as if he's going to go and never come back again. And it's like, dude, this guy's like the father of your nephew. So clearly he's going to still be in your life. All right, so let's calm it. Other than that, it is still an incredibly enjoyable ride with some really ridiculously over-the-top stunts. The stuff with, in Dubai, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, love it. So, yeah, very entertaining stuff. At number 6, we've got The Fate of the Furious. This is the 8th film in the franchise. Again, this does suffer from the bloatedness of Part 7. Watching it a second time, I've seen it in the cinema, I've seen it again since on Blu-ray. That second time for me was a better viewing experience than it was on the big screen. And that's often the case with a lot of these, to be honest. I can't say I've ever given any of these films the same score on a second watch. They either dip or they go up a bit. But yeah, whereas Furious 7 has kind of waned a bit for me, on second viewing this went up. Most of that is down to Charlize Theron. I think she makes a really great villain. Obviously she's a great actress anyway, but she really does bring a lot to this. The biggest downside for me in this, for the most part, is the fact that they make Jason Statham's character, Shaw, Deckard Shaw, they make him a good guy. They give him a softer side. They make us warm up to him. And it's like, you've just kind of undone all that super villainy that he had in the previous film. And the fact that this guy seems to get a pardon towards the end, people seem to like forgive him and stuff. They're all sat together around a table eating dinner, and it's like every single one of these guys that is sat there with him should be thinking about Han. You know, You killed our friend. You killed Han. You murdered him in cold blood. You tried to murder us in cold blood. I'm not buying it at all. For me, it's the biggest misstep of the franchise. I get why they've done it. I get the success of, the banter between Statham and Johnson within Furious 7 really was kind of the success of that film to a large degree. And that's why they've gone the route of having Hobbs and Shaw. We want to see these two together. We want to see the bickering among them and the kind of the put downs and stuff. It's really entertaining. It's just a shame they've had to kind of go the route of making this guy a good guy in order to do that, because it's not believable. I don't buy it, not for a second. I certainly don't buy that our main cast of characters would be so forgiving to him, regardless of the fact that he's helped them on this mission. So, yeah, no. Other than that, however, I do like the film. I think that there's some mega cheesy moments, some stuff at the beginning about family, because this franchise just keeps banging on about family. That's its go-to theme, I guess. So some of those moments, a bit cringy. But everything else, the action sequences, the character interactions and whatnot, I really enjoy. It's a blast. Just like the seventh film, yeah. Just like I say, a bit of cheese kind of does make its way in. At number 5, we've got Fast and Furious. This was the 4th film in the franchise, and this is where Justin Lin, I thought, really stepped up his game. So where he kind of introduced himself to the series with Tokyo Drift, he was kind of lumbered with secondary characters that we hadn't had in previous films. He really just had to make the best film he could with a story that wasn't really kind of linked to anything that had gone before. Here, because of the success of that film and because they were able to get Vin Diesel to come back and Paul Walker and Michelle Rodriguez and all them lot, he's able to go full throttle, so to speak. Pardon the pun. And yeah, I think he delivers. He makes a really good action film. It's not spectacular, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't say this is, it's not a must-see cinema. But he puts the franchise back on course. He brings back the characters. He does something decent with them. Puts them in a plot that I find particularly engaging for this kind of movie. And he delivers some really good action set pieces. I think at this point, if you've not liked any of the movies that came before this might not do much to win you over. But I think what it does do is take what's gone before and really solidify it into something that just moves along nicely, is well paced, and has quite a lot of bang for your buck. At number 4, we've got the latest film, Hobbs and Shaw. Now, I've only seen this once. Like I say, most of these films have pretty much gone up or down on a second viewing. So, yeah, this could be at number 5. It could be at number 3 if I did this after a second viewing. I don't know. But for now, I'll settle on number 4. I really had a lot of fun with this. Love the chemistry between Statham and Dwayne Johnson. There is a bit of a magic on screen, I think, with them two. And I do think Statham has a gift for comedy. I genuinely do. I thought he was great in Spy. Yeah, and he's great at action because he does a lot of his own stunts, so you can believe that's him when he's doing the stuff on screen. He's a great package when it comes to action and comedy. Is he the best actor in the world? No, not necessarily, but he does have a gift in certain areas, and I think this franchise utilises those gifts to the best of his abilities. So yeah, he's perfect for this role. Like I say, it's a bit of a bizarre character shift, the way we've gone from him being the ultimate badass villain to someone who's actually not such a bad guy after all and has a warm heart. We stick with the theme of family quite heavily in this. It is cheesy, but it's handled well enough. It doesn't make me want to stick my fingers down my throat and throw up or anything. There's some really great action set pieces. There's a lot of action in this film. I like the addition of the sister, although again, it expands it a bit too much. How many of these siblings have worked for MI6 or special forces or whatever? Anyway, I I like the sister. I can't remember the name of the actress in this. I like the villain played by Idris Elba. In fact, I would say that Idris Elba in this is my favourite villain of the franchise. The movie itself is science fiction. It's science fiction. How have we gone from an original movie about illegal street racing to science fiction? And it's not just like an action film with science fiction elements. This is a science fiction movie. Seriously, the whole kind of theme that goes throughout this film is about improving humanity through cybernetics. And do you lose a sense of your humanity by doing that? And the answer, of course, being yes. And that actually two human beings sticking together, working together is going to be much better than any kind of cybernetically enhanced human being. So yeah, it's sci-fi, which it just boggles my mind. The fact that I can watch this, still enjoy it, and just not care about the fact that these movies have gone just all over the place, you know? Heist movies, action movies, chav movies, sci-fi. What's next? Are we going to get transported back in time and be a Western? I don't know. Fast and Furious with horse and carts. That would be funny, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's bizarre. You really do have to leave your brain at the door and all sense of what is logical. Kind of, yeah, leave that at the door. It's not wanted here. If you can do that, you'll have a blast with this film. Like you say, great villain, great chemistry between the main leads. What I will say primarily about this one is that the running time, you do feel it. It got to a point where I was expecting the ending. It felt like it was about to wrap up. And then all of a sudden we got this whole new act towards the end of the film. It was an entertaining act, but yeah, it's just, you felt it. I don't know if it's because halfway through I really desperately needed a pee. I may have been a bit more relaxed had I not. But yeah, I certainly felt the running time for this one. So that's a shame. But other than that, highly, highly entertaining. At number 3, we've got Fast and Furious 6. Really like this one. Some great action set pieces in this, some really good fight scenes. It's got Gina Carano in, who I really like as an action star. She's another one of them that's a pretty decent package for an action film. She's got a lot of charm about her as well, a lot of charisma. Is she the best actress in the world? No, but again, like I say, what she does have, they utilise it well here. The action set, the 5th film, basically, it took everything about the franchise and then it just went, you know what, how do we take this to 11, you know? And they did, and it was a runaway success. And because of that, now with each of the sequels that has come after, they've kind of said, how do we take it to number 12? How do we take it to 30? You know, how do we keep upping that ampage? And yeah, in this one you get a tank, you get a plane, you get Vin Diesel jumping through the air and headbutting someone, doing a flying headbutt. It's crazy. It's completely off the wall. You've got a plane that takes 15 minutes to get off the ground. If they needed a runway long enough for that plane to take off, it would literally stretch halfway across a country. But despite all that illogical nonsense, it's just a blast. You've got all these different characters. Some we like more than others. At this point, I think, like I say, Tyrese Gibson's character started to become just a little bit too much of a joke. Some of his stuff's funny, but a lot of it isn't. But the characters that you don't like, it doesn't matter because there's a lot that you might. So yeah, I like seeing all these various characters in the mix, doing their own thing, crisscrossing, having different agendas. Again, we've got a good villain with Luke. Is it Luke Evans? I want to say Luke Evans. Yeah, so he's Shaw's brother. He's a good villain in this. Again, like I think from the 6th film onwards, the villains have all been pretty solid. They've really upped the game. So yeah, good stuff. If you like Fast and Furious, this is definitely one of the better entries. At number 2, we've got the original The Fast and the Furious. This is a film it's kind of got better for me over the years, and I think that's a result of me becoming a fan of the franchise through the later films, and then going back and being able to appreciate this one more. because of the groundwork that it lays, it sets up, you know, it introduces us to these characters that we know are going to go on into these other and indeed better films. Maybe, I mean, I say better, there's only one on my list that I've said is better, but you get the drift. Its biggest downfall really is that it is just a Point Break rip-off. The blueprint for this film is Point Break. I mean, down to the letter. You know, you've got a cop going undercover, trying to find the leader of a gang of robbers, but gets caught up in their dangerous sports, starts to love it, starts to love them, becomes in too deep, and then in the end lets the main bad guy go because he just feels for him as a brother too much. It's Point Break. There's no getting around that. Point Break as well is the better movie by far. But that being said, this is entertaining. It's good stuff. I like the characters. There's some pretty good arcs there, particularly with Dom's character. I feel like more attention is paid to the story in this than later entries, where the action becomes the all-encompassing thing. Again, suffers a bit from some of the CGI nonsense in the races, but there's still plenty of the more physical stuff, the practical stuff, to keep the proper die-hard action fans sated. So yeah, I like it. It's just like I say, feel like I've seen it all before and done better. But if you're a Fast and Furious franchise fan, this is where it started, and this is a really, really solid film, I think. That gets better with age, I'd say. Which, of course, means, for anyone who's been paying attention, that my number one choice is Fast 5, the 5th film in the franchise. This is, as I say, the one in which the franchise just became something else. You know, they washed their hands of all the illegal street racing nonsense, and they said, we got to do something new with this. Where do we take this franchise to make it sustainable? And Justin Lin, who, you know, by now had proved himself with 2 films, he came on with Tokyo Drift, he really outdid himself with Fast and Furious, and then here just goes off the charts because he's given the money, he's given the resources, he's given the talent to make the film that he wants to make, and what he makes is a heist movie. Yeah, not an illegal street racing movie, it's a heist movie, and it's a very good one. You know, we have this elaborate heist that actually keeps you guessing, you know, how they're doing this stuff. There's some pretty good tricks up the sleeve there. It's all bonkers, it's all totally illogical, and, you know, it wouldn't happen in real life. Everything defies the laws of physics. But you don't care, because it's just damn entertaining. Throw Dwayne Johnson into the mix. You know, this is the first time he was introduced. I love the kind of setup of him going up against Dom. I don't believe for a second that Vin Diesel would take Dwayne Johnson in a fight. When you look at the two of them stood together, Vin Diesel looks considerably smaller to me compared to Dwayne Johnson. But yeah, it's entertaining, that build up to that fight scene, and it is also a really great fight scene. But yeah, the stunts at the end, the really good practical stuff with the cars when they're dragging the safe around, the planning of the heist, some pretty good comic moments in there as well. Getting this team together, it's really good stuff. Yeah, enjoyed it immensely, and it's why I became a fan of the franchise. Like I said, I'd been a bit sniffy about them up until this point. I enjoyed some moments in those first 4, but not really paid much attention. This is the film that made me pay attention. It's the film that made me think, actually, they could do all sorts with this series. They could go places that we hadn't thought of, and indeed they do. They go into the realm of science fiction, as they have just done with Hobbs and Shaw. So yeah, there you go. Fast and the Furious. Bit of a strange franchise that I think, as I say, no one ever expected would get to a 9th entry, but it does, it has, and all the better for it. A true switch your brain off at the door franchise that you can just enjoy for the sheer heck of it, the sheer fun of it. So yeah, that's me, that's my thoughts. But what about you? How would you rank this series? Do you even like this series? Leave your comments down below and let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching this video, and until next time, crack in.